The first evacuation flights from Niger have landed in Europe after last week's coup. Military transport planes touched down in Italy and France, carrying mostly European citizens. More evacuations are still underway. Niger's airspace is closed, and France has coordinated the evacuations with the regime that ousted the president, Mohamed Bazoum. West Africa's regional bloc, known as ECOWAS, has warned the coup leaders that they have 1 week to reinstate Niger's elected leader. The bloc is preparing to meet in Nigeria for crisis talks, while two of Niger's neighbors have vowed to back its military junta.
Evacuees board a plane in Niger's capital as the political crisis following last week's coup deepens. French nationals and those from other EU countries are being encouraged to leave on flights organised by Paris.
We were asked to take just a small bag with the essentials because we can't take a suitcase.
As evacuations continue, defence chiefs from ECOWAS, the group of West African states, are meeting for a two-day summit on Wednesday. Some member states have said they are willing to use force to restore Niger's government, but the United Nations has called for calm.
Well, it's difficult because the situation is very fluid. What I know is that different member states are preparing themselves to use force if necessary. But as I said, the situation is fluid, but there are these efforts of find a peaceful solution for the problem.
As its citizens scramble home, the EU condemned the coup, calling it a threat to Niger's democracy and stability.
The authorities in Mali.
The European Union has decided to offer EU personnel in Niamey the possibility to leave the city on a voluntary basis after the coup in Niger. At the moment, we haven't issued a formal evacuation order. The EU will keep its presence in the country.
Military governments in Burkina Faso and Mali have warned any attempt to restore the ousted president would be seen as a declaration of war, leading to fears of further violence for both Niger and the wider region.
Our West Africa correspondent Elisa Chukwuma is following this story from Nigeria, which borders Niger. I asked him about the ongoing tensions in Niger and the evacuation of foreign nationals.
Well, Terry, the tense situation, especially in the capital, Niamey of Niger, has really forced the hand of foreign nationals, especially for the French, who are, you might say, a bit spooked by the events we saw at the weekend with the burning and the attacks on the French embassy and the fires and the flames and all the violence we saw. So evacuations have already begun. Planes have landed in Paris as early this morning with over 200 people on board, most of them French nationals. And also in Italy, another flight arrived early this morning in Rome with a couple of nationals there. So we will see more evacuations from the French and also Italians. The Germans will also take up the offer for European evacuations through the French medium there, and also countries like Spain also taking up this one. Don't forget, Terry, today, Wednesday, makes it a week since the ouster of President Mohamed Bazoum of Niger by this military junta.
Regional military leaders are meeting in Nigeria's capital today to discuss their response. ECOWAS has threatened to use force, if necessary, to restore Niger's democratically elected leader. How likely is military intervention?
Well, it's not very likely, many analysts will say, but it won't come as a surprise. In the decades before now, especially in the 1990s, we have seen, ECOMOG, which is the military arm of ECOWAS, moving to a place like Liberia, Sierra Leone. They really had successful interventions there. Guinea, most recently, Senegalese troops in 2017 to remove the president who didn't step down, the Yahya Jammeh at the time. So, but recently we've not really seen so much, heavy-handedness for ECOWAS. So we'll start see the meetings today in Abuja today and tomorrow. In fact, it's the military chiefs of the ECOWAS bloc who are meeting. So it's a follow-up from Sunday's resolution, perhaps led by, from the calls on Nigeria's President Tinubu to use all means necessary. So if the military chiefs are meeting today and tomorrow, it does mean that ECOWAS might be serious on that front.
Talk to us, Chukwuma, briefly about the regional context here. How worried are neighboring countries about this coup?
Well, they are. Terry, you look at since 2020, you look at the recent slew of coups that happened in Mali, in Burkina Faso, and in Guinea, with the attempts there too, and now Niger, almost forming what ostensibly many are calling the coup belt. So hence why countries like Nigeria, Ghana, Benin, Togo, the Ivory Coast have their eyebrows raised that will this emerging trend continue in West Africa, where military juntas just go and topple civilian governments? Will West Africa ostensibly become the coup capital of the world? So the worries from the West African bloc are very, very valid at this point, because should Niger be allowed to carry on as a state, many things might spin out of control.
Lisa, thank you very much for putting that into context for us. So, Lisa Chukwuma in Lagos, Nigeria. Well, the coup has cast doubt on a European Union mission training Niger's armed forces to deal with instability in the region. Germany is part of that operation, but the ouster of Niger's elected government is calling Berlin's involvement into question.
Germany once thought of Niger, under the former government of President Mohamed Bazoum, as one of its most reliable partners in the Sahel region. During a visit to the country last year, Chancellor Scholz saw how German soldiers were helping train Niger's forces near the border with Mali, a region which is both a key route for migrants heading to Europe and also a battleground for Islamist terror groups. But the seizure of power by a new military-led government means Germany will need to rethink its role in Niger. Berlin has suspended all financial and development support for Niamey until further notice and is considering further measures. The German defense minister says they're watching the situation closely.
Our military cooperation is suspended as long as it is not clear where we are going. We are still on site at our airbase that we operate. For us and for our forces in Mali, there is nothing else to say at the moment. The situation is still unclear, and it is much too early to say whether there will be close military cooperation in the future.
Besides the training role, Germany operates an air transport hub in Niger's capital, Niamey, with around 100 Bundeswehr soldiers. As Germany pulls its UN peacekeeping force out of neighbouring Mali, that base was due to play a key part. But Niger's airspace is currently closed. If the situation remains unstable, using it for the withdrawal from Mali may be difficult. The coup could also affect Germany's involvement in an EU military support mission in Niger. The concern is that more unrest could force European countries to leave, reducing their influence perhaps for many years. That could bolster terror groups and become a driver for migration away from countries like Niger, ultimately adding to the instability in this war-torn region.
Well, for more, I'm joined now by DW political correspondent Julia Sardelli. Julia, how many troops does Germany have in Niger, and are there plans to pull them out?
So at the moment, we can count around 100 German soldiers in Niger, and most of them are now taking part in an operation meant to help with the withdrawal of troops and equipment from neighboring Mali, where Germany was part of a European military program, military mission, which is meant to conclude by the end of this year. And these operations are also being made difficult by the situation in Niger, since Niger's airspace has been closed, meaning that maybe the timeline of this withdrawal might have to change. But Germany is also now directly in Niger with a military mission there, also an EU military mission, where Germany is meant to provide training and support to Niger's army to help fight violence and instability in the region. And as far as we've heard until now, the German government has not announced any evacuation of German troops from Niger, but this is something that the government is likely considering very closely as the situation evolves, as they look at the security situation in the country, and given that pro-coup supporters have been calling for all foreign troops to leave the country.
Julia, thank you very much. That was our political correspondent, Julia Saudali.
Well, to discuss what's at stake in Niger, let's speak to Alex Vines, who is director of the Africa programme at Chatham House. Thanks a lot for joining us just to understand this a little bit better. So how interested is Russia in Niger's natural resources?
The Russian Federation is a mining country, and so wherever there is mining assets, they will go to. They're looking at them. They are, for example, their company Rusal is a major producer of bauxite, mining bauxite in Guinea. And so a country like Niger, that represents the 7th largest producer of uranium in the world, is somewhere that Russia would theoretically be interested in.
And how deep is Russia's involvement already there, given the Wagner Group's presence in Niger?
Actually, I'm not sure the Wagner Group is present in Niger. It's very present to the north in Libya, and it's very active in Mali. It's trying to get market entrance to get into Burkina Faso, and the military junta leader in Burkina Faso was very visible at the Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg last week, including also being at the annual Navy Day celebration in St. Petersburg on Sunday. So the Russians are wooing him. We've seen some Russian flags being flown around amongst demonstrators in Niger, but Russia itself has robustly condemned the coup in Niger. They supported a UN Security Council resolution, and Foreign Minister Lavrov has condemned the coup twice, saying that constitutional rules should be returned. Having said that, the head of Wagner private military group, Mr. Prigozhin, has said that the coup in Niger is a great step forward, and he's been offering his services to the junta in Niamey.
And how much can we separate those two groups, the Russian government and Wagner? Because if they're saying different things, it's a little confusing, isn't it? Because we know that one of them does kind of rely on the other.
Look, I'm confused on this. I was less confused until the events of Wagner moving on to Moscow. And since then, so what happened in June has been very confusing. It could be that actually the Kremlin doesn't welcome military coups because they may have felt threatened by Wagner potentially trying to stage one. I mean, we just don't know. So it's all very confusing, including that Mr. Prigozhin was on the fringes of the Russia-Africa summit in St. Petersburg. We've seen photos of him meeting people, and he's still active, although he's meant to be in Belarus. He's clearly in the Russian Federation at the moment. So it's confusing. It's not clear.
Indeed. Well, let's hope we can get some clarity as time goes on. Alex Vines from Chatham House, thank you so much for bringing us your insights, nevertheless.
Thank you very much.